Hi, I'm Jamie Farkas, the General Manager of Music at Vice, and I'm really excited to be an international delegate for Melbourne Music Week this year, 2013, and to speak at Face the Music. And I'm going to answer some questions for you guys as a lead-in to the festival. I think in the truest sense of what a traditional label means, we are one. We sign bands, we distribute their albums. That said, we obviously have a huge advantage over other labels because we're part of a bigger media company. The label itself isn't an agency, but we have the ability to sometimes function as one. You know, we have at our fingertips ways to advertise our bands across all of our platforms, both online and in print. We have various editorial sites that we can have our bands be a part of, whether that's through content or direct editorial support. We have partnerships with any number of brands who have music-based programs that we can plug our own artists into. We have all the content that we make, which, you know, not only can we find ways to put our bands in physically appearing in the content, but also can put their music in all of that content. So we really do have an array of ways to promote our artists under our own umbrella, much like an agency, but in the most traditional sense, the label is a label. So, you know, we are traditional in that way. We don't sign bands specifically to put them into the other arms of the company. We use those arms of the company for the bands that we sign. In this day and age, I think content is really king, and a lot of the content we make involves brand partners. Brands are obviously a great way to also fund things that you want to do, be it content online or off. You know, you can bring in a brand to sponsor a tour. You can bring in a brand to pay for a music video. So there's tons of in between from those two, but both on and offline brands are increasingly an important part of our business as a label, not only in terms of how we fund projects that we want, but also just an added gain in terms of exposure for the artist. When you work with a brand, you know, they become an integral partner, and you use their platforms just like you use your own and the artist to promote whatever it is you're doing with them. And I think it's, you know, really hard to accomplish everything you want to without partnering with people. And those partnerships don't necessarily have to be brands that we think of in more of the corporate way. You know, it can be a partnership with another music company, a magazine, a radio station. You know, any entity is a brand. You know, Vice is a brand, our artists are their own brands. So, you know, I think the answer to this question in some ways has to do with how you define a brand partnership. As a label, it's always been incredibly important to us that we sign a band to help build their career, that we don't look at things in an album cycle, you know, or a 3-month setup, album comes out 3 months after cycle. You know, when we sign a band, we start working with that artist. We work the first album that we put out until the day the next record comes out, and at that point we work the previous album as a catalog piece. You know, it's really important to us on an ethos level that everything an artist does continues to be an important part of the story that we're telling about them, and that the overall goal is, you know, we're building an artist's career, not something that's a short-term sort of trajectory. I think in terms of, do we sign artists specifically to license those records to other territories? The answer is no. We're lucky enough to have a global distribution network So we have the luxury of signing bands and not necessarily needing to look to other partners in other territories. That said, there have certainly been projects in the past where, we've had any number of partners across the world for a given record, but we've never signed a band, whether they're from the US or another country, specifically with the idea in mind that it would be successful somewhere else and we would find a partner for any other given territory where we thought the band would do very well or perhaps do even better than in the States.